Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we've got a exciting day again ahead here at VCTV. We have been talking about this for the last 2 weeks. This is the third quarter, Q3, quarter three. This is the sprint towards the end of the year. It's the most important time for either side of the table, whether you're an investor looking at what opportunities are out there and also what technologies are coming to light, how things are trending, how things are changing, what's happening in different regions, or you're on the other side as an entrepreneur, you're building, you're fundraising. This is the time to get everything done as you sprint towards the end of the year. It's exciting. And so we continue to bring some of the best and the brightest from around the world in their respected industries to talk to you here on VCTV, not only about technology, not only about industry, and not only about regions around the world, but also share with you how they think as investors to prepare you, whether you're looking at finding good opportunities and want to know the latest and greatest and be up to date, or you are an entrepreneur fundraising. This is how investors think. This is how they're looking at different markets and technologies. And they could be the next investor or advisor or something else for you and your company as well. And with that, we welcome you to the show today. For those that may be first timers, welcome back to those who continue to tune in with us. And also at any time, if you have any questions, comments, feel free to drop them in the box. We'll do our best to ask them in real time. If not, we're all available 24/7, 365 online. I'd be happy to continue the conversation. And if you like what you're hearing today, do click subscribe. But if you're an investor and you'd like to be on with us, you'd like to be on a panel like this, whether we're talking about education or several other subjects, do reach out to Maria, Elena, the LATOKEN team, and or myself, and we'll find the right opportunity for you. And entrepreneurs. I got too excited because this is a big, exciting moment. Entrepreneurs, this is an opportunity for you too. There is a virtual stage here for you to get up on and pitch us as investors, but also pitch our entire live audience. You got a new product, you're fundraising, whatever it may be, you just like to talk to people live. We've got a spot for you. So do reach out, and we'd love to have either side join us for these wonderful episodes here at VCTV. And also an amazing and large, huge, ginormous thank you to Elena, Maria, and to the entire LATOKEN team for making VCTV possible every single day, multiple times a day, because this week and last week and the week after and all this month, we've got double packed episodes every day. So get ready. Tons to talk about here on VCTV. With that, we are talking about education and education technology, just as what we're going to be doing here today for the next little bit, educating you. We are talking about what's happening around the world around education. How has education changed? What does education look like going forward? And how does technology play a very unique role in pushing that forward? With that, let's start introducing our guests. All right. First and foremost, Vindy, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to see you. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kyle. Hi, everyone. My name's Vineet, and I am a three-time founder based here in India. Today, I am here in my position and role as a venture capitalist. I represent Orias Venture Partners. We are a seed fund in India. Amongst other sectors, we are a very active investor in the EdTech space in India. Have been researching the space, speaking to a lot of founders, as well as the end users of education, kids and the parents. Happy to learn from everyone else on the panel. Thanks a lot, Kyle. That's from me.
And welcome back. A lot to talk about too, especially with what's happening in India. And we've talked about this pre-show and on other episodes. India and greater Southeast Asia, there's so much changing around education and really introduction of new education methods, whether it be online or just digital in itself. So a lot to talk about there. And Arena, welcome back. My new co-host, get to see you almost every day. This is exciting. Gary and Noble would be super jealous, but nonetheless, we are pleased to have you. A little intro, a little background, and welcome back to the show.
I'm so excited to be back. Everyday marathon for me for next 2 weeks. I'm really, really looking forward to. I love our work and I love what we're doing here. And I want to echo real quick something, Kyle, you said, entrepreneurs. I think this is such a great opportunity for them to come and be here because it's all investors. usually you go to conferences and these events and it's all crowded by entrepreneurs, and you can rarely find investors who are deploying. People that are here, they are deploying, and that's important. So entrepreneurs, do it. I want to see more of you. Anyhow, Irina Litchfield, Google me at Crypto Superwoman, and education is something that I care very much so about because I'm a parent, and I believe that there are a number of interesting investments and changes that are happening right now.
Absolutely. Definitely check her out online, but also to that point, I mean, we are here all investors. We're sharing what we're doing. We're sharing what we're investing or not investing in, but also a lot is happening in education, and it means something different, but also the same for all of us as well. And we all have our different spins on it. Sergey, with that being said, my man, welcome to the show for the first time here with us at VCTV. A little intro, a little background on yourself.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kyle, and for having me here. Thanks, Elena, for inviting me. Yeah, my name is Sergey Rebzin. I think I probably have a little bit of a different perspective here on this panel than most of the panelists. So you guys are investors, invest in EdTech. I actually invest as part of an education institution. So I'm an investor at New York University at the NYU Innovation Venture Fund, helping students and faculty start companies. We run a number of accelerator programs for students. We went fully virtual, and we've been continuing to do them virtually successfully over the last several months. And we also invest in technologies coming out of the university. I'm also somewhat recently a founder of an education company called School 16. So both founder and investor perspective here. Started that company 5 months ago, right when all of this craziness started, to help people get into jobs in tech, specifically non-technical jobs. It's a continuing education company helping adults land non-technical jobs, help them figure out what jobs are right for them, and then give them the skills to actually get them. Trying to address a lot of the unemployment and uncertainty that's happening right now in the world. So investing as part of NYU, but also running this company called School 16 on the side. Thanks for having me again.
Love it. And I am going to hit you with some questions when we get into this around having started that company, when you did, and what some of those lessons learned or hurdles you've had to go through. So just be ready to share that. But welcome to the show. We're excited to talk a little bit more about that, especially from the university perspective as well, and getting some insights on how you guys are looking at making those investments. And Louis, welcome back to the show. I got to tell you, man, before you go with your intro, you've got one of the best voices we've had here on VCTV.
Oh, do I now? I mean, look at that. I guess that's why I do a little radio. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's crystal clear, Louis. I mean, I'm loving it. But go ahead, intro background.
I'm here for you, Kyle. I'm here for you. And let me first thank Elena for setting things up, and Maria. Elena, I wish you the best in everything you do. I know she's leaving us. Let me go into myself briefly. I'm a managing partner at FJA Partners. We're a private equity firm that's focused on technology. I'm also the CEO of Megahoot, which is an American software and technology company. We're involved in AI, VR, AR, collaboration platforms, so on and so forth. And this topic right here, we're gonna have a lot of fun with this because there's a lot of stuff going on. Don't want to take up too much time now because I'll take up a little more time a little bit later, Kyle.
Wonderful. I love it. Telly, last but not least, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to see you since yesterday. A little intro, a little background on yourself as well.
Hi, I'm Telionu. I'm based in St. Kitts and Nevis, living in the island of Nevis, from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And for me, education is life. You can't move forward without education. And more specifically, I'm really focused on the practical, pragmatic type of education that allows us to execute on things. So, yeah, a little bit of my background. What can I say? High level, been a management consultant for over 20 years. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Recently started doing investing about 5 years ago. Also still a serial entrepreneur, still launching stuff. So I'm co-founder of a fintech incubator, focused on building out a digital market infrastructure. And I'm also a seasoned trainer and educator. You didn't know that, didn't you?
I didn't. That was a curveball. Wow.
And I have we've co-founded a new training institute, or should I say school, called Out Schools. It's focused on alternative finance, but we're really looking at reimagining alternative finance. It's really heavily focused on driving us forward in this digital financial age.
I love it. And I think, you bring up a key word to transition us into today's discussion. That's reimagine. Reimagining the idea of education has been something I believe we've looked at, pardon me, for a number of years, but really over the last 12 months, maybe even 24 months, I'll give it, there's been a big movement at looking at how education should be reimagined. How should education be better implemented into all of our lives, right? Not just what in the US is K through 12, but also just before university and then after university and during university, that continuing education. What does all that look like? And so Telly, thank you for that word. That's a perfect for today's theme. So reimagining education, let's talk about it. How are you guys seeing the current state of education and education technology today? And we'll get to then how is that being reimagined and looked at for the forward. So Vinti, let's start with you. I'm going to come to you first, then we'll come around. So Vinit, what are you seeing as the current state of education technology from your perspective, whether that be in India or just globally? How are you seeing things?
Thanks, Kyle. Yes, I will focus my responses to India, given that ORISE is an India-focused fund. Having said that, we've had a couple of very interesting things happen, right? And I'm not even going to talk to you about the lockdown and all of that. What's happened is for the first time since 1986, India has had a whole new national education policy. I mean, we've had a policy, but the last major policy was 1986. Before people had computers in offices, forget homes in India. So it's been a huge revamp here in India. And to give you a little bit of a fact on how interesting this has been, this policy aims to add 35 million seats to higher education in India, right? I mean, this is more than the population of a lot of countries. And this is only, million. Yes, 35 million new seats in addition to what's already been in India, right? And this is only higher education. So you're not even adding what will go into kindergarten or, all of that, right? Yeah, so in India, I mean, the only thing we've got going for us is big numbers, big market, large everything. Having said that, interestingly in India, what we are seeing is you've had one end of the spectrum, tech startups that purely do education. Some of our unicorns and decacorns like Byju's and Unacademy, these are today sort of household names, even with investors outside of India. But you today have dozens of new startups popping up in all kinds of small subsectors within education. For example, we are focusing on, teaching kids English, right? Because very often kids that go to government schools, you have everyone from the principal to the supervisor to the math teacher actually teaching in the local language. So only the English teacher speaks in English, right? So English education is very high priority in India. And just in this sector, there are dozens of startups trying to figure this out. Very interesting, very valuable. Another space that we are all looking at in India is, non-academic education, right? So going beyond your math, your STEM and your languages and all of that, maybe co-curricular activities, arts, dance, music, all of this. I was speaking with a serial entrepreneur today, and he said there are 15 startups in India that are currently raising a Series A, and none of them are doing academic. They're all doing co-curricular activities in India, right? So the numbers are just large, and I'm glad that the new education policy is kickstarting it, and it's very, very startup friendly and investor friendly. Of course, going into the details is beyond the scope of this call, but happy to speak about it later.
Maybe high level. What are just a few of those details, if you could, just high.
Sure. So one of the biggest changes in the policy is previously India had this 10+2 system, right? So you went first grade through 10th grade. So at the end of 10th grade, you had sort of a final exam. And if you passed it, you went to 11th and 12th grade. And if you passed that, you went to college. They have revamped that entirely. So now you're going to have a 5+3 plus sort of 2 and 2 sort of system. So kids have a lot more focus, as opposed to everything for the first 10 years of your school leading up to that one exam. Right. Wow. So, yeah. And again, this is thanks to, our pre-independent sort of British education hangover. I'm glad we are getting done with some of those hangovers very quickly. So again, not getting into the politics of it, but I'm glad that we, as a country and as a government, have decided that, hey, listen, it's okay to have some drastic changes in India.
Well, and it sounds like that, I mean, literally just open the world up in terms of opportunities for, as you were saying, for people to start building and technology to start being integrated. So we'll come back onto where those opportunities are, but that's a awesome kickoff for us. So Arena, to you, I mean, where are you seeing the current state of education technology?
I think now that we have a proof concept of virtualization, so now we can comfortably say that a lot of children now are comfortable using Zoom and receiving education through via virtual channels. We now have a huge opportunity and need for gamification of that education, because capturing attention in person is so much different. And I think that's where opportunities are. And one more thing I think that is an important vertical, and it seems that you started it and it's just kind of been recurring format here, that adult education, because we are learning and it does not stop with your university. We're constantly learning. And because we have so many innovations coming up right now and so many big changes constantly happening, our life now is very dynamic with the crucial spikes, ups and downs, and different circles, right? We need to be able to train people again through gamification, because as much as we think that an adult is going to sit there and listen boring, right, lecture, we need to make sure that those skills are added to a person through a game, right? So, and I'm seeing a lot of interesting stuff happening through that in US, especially because we are more privileged than other people in the world, to where we all do have computers, and our schools did distribute, computers to all the children, brand new, whatever technology it is. My kid is in private school, so that. And I think one more thing is, now that we are going virtual, we now can ask ourselves, what is the next question? What is the next gap that we're missing? And that gap is the textile. So distribution of materials is crucial, because before, especially in the public education, what we had is the school, right? Or parents would go, well, how do you make sure that the baseline is there? And so I think the distribution on a big scale, as well as educational subscription boxes that go with whatever, platform your kids are using, because there's a lot of it. And I think kind of those three things are really, really huge, big, low-hanging, big fruits right now available.
Let's bring up two good points. Gamification. I mean, we all love gaming at any level, right? And this is something that we're seeing more in the adults, or the continuing education, I should say, space, right? Where things are a little bit gamified. There's there's awards, there's achievements, there's certificates that you can get, and it helps you get to another level, right? Where now there's some other levels of gamification that's going to play too, that we're starting to see, and the distribution materials as well. And I've got another gap that I'm going to bring up in a moment. But before we do, Sergey, to you, look, you sit on all sides of this, but really you work for a university. So what are you seeing as the current state of education technology from your viewpoint, both now as a founder and as an investor on behalf of a university? And I won't make you be specific, but just saying that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Kyle. I mean, and I have to piggyback and agree with Arena here that we are constantly learning now, and that's probably the biggest shift. and I'm going to speak more from the perspective of higher ed here versus K to 12, but having an undergraduate education, and in some cases for some jobs and careers, even a graduate degree, is just no longer enough. And that's very apparent for most professionals coming into the workforce, in particular when, in the last 10 years, we're in the second wave of an economic kind of calamity happening in a country where there's mass unemployment. So it's difficult for people to get jobs just by having one degree. So what I'm seeing from my perspective is that most people are looking for supplementary ways to learn. Some of them are actually even doing it while they're still in college and undergraduate or graduate programs. They're taking classes or programs outside of what's just offered in their universities. And many people are doing it 5, 10, 15, 20 years after they graduate as well to make themselves more competitive, because how else do you make yourself competitive in the workforce when your background and your resume is not very differentiated? So that's one trend, is just the demand for education is there. The demand for differentiating yourself and your experience is there. But also the access is there as well. And there's actually a lot of pressure on higher education institutions right now to change access. Of course, we've all been hearing about the astronomical rises in tuition costs over the decades, and how it's preventing for access for many people to go into, especially top institutions, to access education, simply because it's prohibitive, right? Unless you come from a background where your parents can cover the tuition, or you have savings, or you don't, it's okay for you to get into 6 figures worth of debt, you may never even consider going into a particular school because it's not accessible to you. So you have all these pressures coming at you, and that's creating opportunities where you have startups coming out and trying to essentially create release valves for this pressure of demand for education and also access. So that's why we saw the proliferation of boot camps, in particular coding boot camps, over the last decade, where the cost is much lower. The time to acquire the skills is much faster. That's very attractive to people. It's very focused, and they can then be marketable and get, well-paying jobs after that. And now, even over the last couple of years, we've had the popularization of in tools and payment vehicles such as income share agreements, where people actually, it's a risk-free type of education, where until they get the job, they don't have to pay tuition, and they can pay it as a percentage of their income without any kind of predatory interest that you see from lenders, right? Now there's issues with ISAs as well. There's been a little bit pushback, but at least it's creating access for that type of education. So coding boot camps kind of popularized these concepts of faster education and more accessible. There's now other types of ways and things and topics and industries you can learn about aside from just coding, because not everybody will be a programmer. As much as we all love technology and we think everyone should learn how to code, not everybody's going to learn how to code. It's not realistic for everyone. So now there's going to be other opportunities for people to learn as well. So those are really the main things that I'm seeing in higher ed. It's creating some pressures for higher education institutions as well. I think the top 10, top 20 universities and colleges are going to be okay. They're going to be able to innovate faster because they have the capital, and they also have the demand from students, because name brands do matter on your resume. But a lot of the smaller institutions, non-brand name institutions, they're going to have to react to that pressure, in particular with tuition costs. It's just not going to be sustainable to have those tuition costs if they can't offer the value of guaranteeing a job, which is why people go to college in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Well, and separating it now from university to what we've also heard. I mean, outside of startups, we have large corporations, right? Google has made big announcements. I can't even think of the right word how to describe this. Offering these online programs for little to none or free, up to a couple $100, where, to your point, someone can get trained, not just get a certificate, but actually get the knowledge they need to go into product or project management, to go into coding, to go into something in between, and not have to go through a university, or not have to go through trying to get a job, but instead go through these new routes, which will be, I'm sure, something we'll talk about in terms of opportunity, because that might be a funnel for talent for some of these companies. So we'll see how those play out. But one other thing I wanted to point out that you did bring up, Sergey, as well, is the multiple tracks. So one thing that boot camps have done so well, and not to steal from anybody's points, is you don't have to take 9 to 5 boot camps. And you're stuck in that one boot camp all day. Instead, you can take a boot camp here, you can take an online class here, you can do this, you can do that. Next thing you know, in 8 weeks, you've got experience, a portfolio, and access in 4 or 5 different subjects very quickly, which is fascinating to see. To your point, we have branding, but then how fast and how vast do people's resumes and how vast and fast do things grow from an education standpoint for each of us, right? And that, how does that challenge the future workforce, which we'll get into a little later, but that's something I think as well as wild and very exciting for many of us, right? So Louis, I apologize. I didn't mean to steal anything from you, Telly, or Adrian, but continuing on, current state, how are you seeing things?
Well, you put me at the tail end of this one. I'm following Sergey, Irina, Vinette. I don't know. But anyway, EdTech is the future. You know, education, technology is the future of learning. The problem that I see with it is that there has to be balance. And we spoke about that on other shows. There has to be balance. You have to be able to balance it out. Affordability, that's important too, because when, you know, Sergey mentioned higher education, when you go to a university, you have to go buy books and do this and spend all this enormous amount of money on educational material. If you can have everything digitally, it should be more affordable. And this is the problem that you're going to see with universities and, you know, and the companies that provide these books. But if you're able to do this on a digital scale, I think it's a lot better. You're going to have more students. They'll find it more affordable to go to university and get the education and be competitive, because as Sergey said, you know, having an undergraduate, that type of thing, you know, that's like, hey, that's everyone has it. What's next? Where's your MBA? Where's this? Where's that? And it's going to cost a lot of money to get that. And if they can make it more affordable with technology, that's a better scenario. Okay. And you mentioned Google and other companies. You have companies out there that are doing things on you know, for free for anyone that wants it. There's a company, and I know I shouldn't be mentioning individual companies, but Coursera, they do this, and Vinette, he mentioned Baiju. Okay, what they're doing over there. You know, I think that if you have balance within these companies and in the ed tech space, you're going to have more people adhering to it. Because my big concern is people becoming socially awkward. Kids, they're not interacting. They're not the human contact. Where is it? If you're on, like we're right now doing this, if I had to do this for the rest of my life, I would become socially awkward. I wouldn't know how to act around people, and that's part of the problem with the new generation. Okay, they have a problem communicating. And I think that all this needs to be addressed. Again, I don't want to take up too much time with this, and I'll pass the ball over to Telly. I know she's waiting. She's chomping at the bit, ready to go. Yeah, I think that, again, EdTech is the future, especially with 5G, Kyle. 5G, that's going to be very helpful. Okay, I'll pass the ball.
I mean, that changes the game. 5G or future of connectivity. We'll just sum it up because we've talked in previous episodes. Someone like Samsung said, meh, 5G is not cool enough. Let's go to 6G. So the future of connectivity, you're absolutely right. I mean, looking at, you know, emerging markets, 1, 2, developed markets, how that plays a role, throw in AR, VR, which I'm coming back to you on. So don't think you're out of that question yet. There's so much potential there. But Telly, I'm not going to take any more because we got Adrian too. What are you seeing as the current state?
Wow, whew, that's a tall order. Okay, so for me, I would kind of home into some areas that are, I think, have been missing. I live in an emerging market. So for us, I would say one of the largest big pressure points is access. And we're seeing startups, startups that are solving for access, whether it's from a content perspective, or even access to the actual technology. So we're seeing very unique variable models that are coming up to allow for that accessibility. I think Sergey mentioned it, you know, when you're linking it to affordability and how you can access to be affordable, there are many different unique models that one can use. So we're also seeing that spin up to a lot more financing, different fintech financing models that allow for the affordability and access of that. Subscriptions are on a rise. You're seeing asset-based lending. So asset-based lending might be something that's common and normal in the North American space, but when you're looking at Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, it's something that's relatively new. So on the policy side, you're seeing governments are now pushing and trying to reform and trying to put in place those secure transaction reforms to allow for movable assets. So that unlocks the ability for people to then start offering like computers, hardware, and even software using the asset-based lending. On an issue on the marketability and also the quality, I would echo what Sergey, intimated. Basically, it's all about competency-based training and practicalities, because people going through run-of-the-mill universities are not necessarily getting the practice, that pragmatic, practical elements. So the missing link we see is apprenticeships. So startups are in the space of offering those type of, or redesigning the experiences around apprenticeships, even between the different entities are really on a rise. And along with apprenticeships is that whole supporting ecosystem of mentoring and mentorships. So there's some unique startups we're seeing in this space actually providing those type of, I would say intangible, but really, really impactful solutions. When you hit on, okay, fine, we have everyone in this market, how do you verify and know, what you have? So this is where I think, the data, you cannot miss out data. Data is so critical, where you have, you can actually leverage data first in terms of enhancing the learning experience. Things like adaptive learning is going to be really big, and startups in the space of focusing on how you can take content and tailor it to people's learning styles is really key. A niche area will be people with different abilities or disabilities, or different abled persons, so to speak. I think that's niche. There's still not enough focus in that area, so that niche will be very, very good. We're also seeing a growth in, again, with data, risk-based type of solutions, which enable then those type of income share type agreements and those type of financing models. Because, hey, let's be frank, scholarships and student loans is killing everyone. Yeah. So if we can reimagine and remodel student loans, which income share agreements do pretty well, they just take the model of a revenue share, I think is really great. But then what's really important is to make sure you have the proper risk-based instruments that can support that access, right? A person might not appear to have the money or have the resources or even the know-how, but then inherent, they have the grit. They're going to do well. They're going to pay you back. So those risk-based lending mechanisms are really important. And then last but not least, I would say I echo Irina, gamification. It's all about engagement and communication, and it's vital. So what we're seeing now is people using, again, VR, AR. I find that a really interesting space for engagement. It's immersive, and especially if remote is going to be pretty much a little bit of it's here to stay. So remotely, people still want to have that immersive experience. I think VR is really going to take off with education and also for engagement and communication. So that's where we're seeing the market heading. And these are some of the areas we're also focused on innovating. Mm-hmm.
You're bringing up two great points: gamification, but that personalization of education, right? So using and leveraging data to retailer education, whether that be at the content level or elsewhere, because you're right, we don't all learn the same way. And we also learn at different speeds, but we also want to learn different things. So, kind of to Vineet's point around what's happening in India, there's a huge opportunity, I would say, with leveraging data to better educate each and every one of us, finding the areas of focus, the areas of niche, the areas that we're interested in, and just running with it. To Sergey's point of being able to look at multiple different streams, I mean, you put data in the middle of that, which we can assume data is with some of the platforms that Lewis mentioned, it could really get exciting. So with that, Adrian, to you, current state of education, how are you seeing education tech?
Hello, everybody. Because I need also to introduce myself because I came here 10 minutes late. My name is Adrian Niculescu. I'm involved in Faster Capital, which is a Dubai-based accelerator and incubator of companies. And also I have other hats. I will not enter into details. Thank you very much for having me here for, I believe, 10th or 11th time this season, which is pretty cool. Let me start with a very, very short story. We as humans, we have, every one of them, we have the fastest computer on earth, which is our brain, but we don't have the manual to use it. And in theory, the formal education should deliver that, but in reality, formal education, what we go to school, to university, to a master's, to an MBA, solves that like 20% of the tools we need to have success in life, even lower than that. So the current education system is obsolete. And the biggest opportunity I see is for the platforms, for the startups, for the governments, or for the organizations, the NGOs, which will be able to influence the things so to shift this. Because in the formal education, we learn so many things which are not useful in life, not useful in business, not useful even in handle our emotions. So when we are down, what to do not to suicide ourselves, for example, which is a pretty harsh example, but it happens a lot in our entrepreneurship world. People are down for a reason and they suicide themselves. So I see the huge opportunity here in changing the whole paradigm, so to be able to install on our computer, which is our brain, the tools, the programs, the software to be able for us to function at the best potential. Of course, I'm not talking about introducing a chip here, but I was born in 1975. Let's say that when I was born, not even the Windows existed then, right? So imagine what software I had on my computer at that time. And if I want to use a program, a knowledge which is updated today, I need to change the system. Imagine trying to plug in the first Macintosh computer a cable to connect it with the latest model of iPhone. It will not work. So I see the huge opportunity in changing this framework, how we learn, how we develop ourselves. Maybe we'll be able not to use just 10% of our brain, of our computer, we'll use 12 or 15%. Is a huge opportunity there. This is what I see.
Absolutely. I'm seeing some shaking heads. I think everyone's agreeing with you. And I want to touch on a few things because we're getting close to time here, but I think there's a few exciting pieces to touch on. So Irina, I'm going to start with you here around blockchain. So I want to bring this up. I mean, Telly talked on this. Lewis is shaking his head. Blockchain does play a very interesting role in the future of education. And if you could touch on it, and then maybe we'll come back around other opportunities. But where do you see blockchain playing a role in education going forward? And I'll come to you, Lewis, next on this. So don't worry.
You beat me to it. I was going to say the solutions for all of our problems, I believe, lay in the single source of truth, so verification, and then personalization, right? So verification makes it authentic, and personification makes it personable. That's AI and blockchain. Interestingly, Adrian, trans tech, so transformative technology, is actually its own evolved thing, which I would love to be able to do. And that's exactly what it concentrates on how do we improve our mental power to be able to go into it. And so the blockchain, going back to blockchain, when we think about blockchain, we think about single source of truth. That means that it's in immutable data. The problems, I believe, the fundamental problems with education on its basic core is that the information usually ends up being kind of not correct, right? Like, unless it's a math, especially when the history and the way we look at perspectives and everything else, it ends up being like, oh, well, that was a lie. And depending in which country you live too. I mean, in Russia, I learned things that I'm like, oh, when I came to America, that's not what's learned here. And it's unbelievable. And that's in the books. And so the verification of the information allows us to provide authentic education. And I think that one of the things that the big challenge right now is this. It is experience and skill versus certification. And so I think that traditional education, the certifications, the universities who say you have to do it this way, and this is how it is, it kind of becomes less relevant, because instead of spending your 4 years getting your bachelor degree, paying who knows what, you can have so many skills. I mean, our world is so vast, and by then you can already have, it becomes a reality. A lot of those that hire, they're looking for skills. Those interpersonal skills we were talking about, guys, are the key. So if we can have a verified information, single source of truth, allows us to be able then to go and acquire whatever information we want and build up our skills. And obviously there's a space for traditional education too. So blockchain is playing a huge role right now, because it is the era of implementation in blockchain industry. And so if you're in education, if you're wanting to find solutions, if you want to invest, look at those solutions that actually integrate blockchain technology, because it solves that basic layer. It applies to everywhere, all the way through, right, to all education. So those are huge opportunities, I think, right now.
Absolutely. Lewis, you got a triple decker here. Anything to add?
I have a lot to add. Irina, you hit a lot of nails on the head. Blockchain, immutable, irrefutable. It's the center of truth, because you can't change it. You had a big college scandal admissions deal here that happened. Okay, if blockchain was initiated there, do you want to have that wouldn't have taken place at all? But you can incorporate blockchain into a lot of things. We're utilizing that in artificial intelligence, and with education, you have AR. I think this is important. I have some friends that are developing some great platforms for education that is involving augmented realities, getting the kids involved. Okay, granted, that's the grammar school and everything, but that can transition to higher education if need be. Virtual reality, I'm sure that everyone's seen that Ready Player One movie. Things like that can and will probably come to pass. Again, my issue has to do with the social awkwardness that's going to take place, but technology will continue to move forward, and the implementation of 5G, that's going to bring a lot to the table. Okay, and blockchain, I think, is going to play a critical role in things as far as keeping the truth there. Okay, and keeping, records, everything just there. And you can't, when you go and you look at it, this is what it is. This wasn't changed. Nobody took an eraser, and that you can't do it. AR, I think we're going to see a lot of companies, emerging companies, coming out and implementing augmented reality into the educational space, and it's going to make things more cost effective for people. And I think that's going to be a key thing, because the college life is, so you have the fun and games and everything, but education is a key thing. And Kyle, I said my piece.
Well, you got almost everything answered. I got one question for you as a follow-up to that, and that's the social dynamics. So something that you're very concerned about. I think we all share that as well. But I mean, what are you seeing as a potential solution towards this? Because this is a problem. I see you, Irina. Don't worry. This is a problem that we're facing, right? We have both online and then physical interactions, and when you look at again, before university and then after university, just to separate the conversation, that social dynamic plays a very impactful role. So how do you see technology hopefully helping to solve some of those initial gaps that we're experiencing?
Well, I think balance, Kyle. Balance is a key thing. You have to maybe have some forced reality time where people need to the students need to connect in person. I mean, we're not talking about COVID and all this other stuff, just in general, because this is a cycle we're at an inflection point. Things are going to change. Things are going to keep going where they're going. We have to be cognizant of this. We have to go and make sure things are in place to keep people socially active. Kids, especially kids, because they're going to grow up to be adults. Just imagine you have the president of the United States that's socially awkward. That's another story. But if you don't incorporate this stuff, I think that and take technology and the real and reality, the real world, and put it all together, what's going to happen is that we're going to hit a brick wall. And I think that you have enough smart people on this panel and in the world that are doing things to correct this, because I think that's going to be an issue that a lot of people are going to be thinking about.
Just give us the oasis already, people. Give us the oasis. But I'll tease, Irina, super quick, and then Sergey, I'm coming to you on something.
Montessori education addresses social intelligence and emotional intelligence, and it is taking so much traction as as our worlds are becoming more virtualized. We're seeing huge traction in Montessori development, and it's amazing.
Wonderful. Sergey, double question. Part one, you were wild and crazy enough to start a company about 5 months ago focused on education. And with all respect, I think it's amazing that you did this. I was just teasing on the lead up to the question, but because it did start at the time it did in this industry, what are some of the one or two challenges you've had to go through and overcome as you look towards reimagining this industry as a founder? And then I'm going to come back to you on the investor side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think all founders, and people start companies when they feel inspired to start companies and solve a challenge, solve a problem, right? But what I saw, at least from my perspective at the university while we were running programs as all of this was happening, is that the vast majority of people had to adjust their approach in some way, whether they completely had to change their business models or they had to change the way they acquired customers, right? Because just the in-person side of things kind of went away, at least temporarily. And so I think all entrepreneurs are facing some challenges when they're starting companies in this kind of environment. Probably people that started companies before this reality are facing more challenges than others because they didn't know what they were getting into. That's just the reality. I had the benefit of starting this immediately once everything hit. We launched the company in April as free events, essentially, and we incorporated it in May once those events started taking off. So we were virtual from the beginning, and we were offering education virtually from the beginning to solve the specific problem of access to opportunities, access to education to help people get jobs. So I would say from my perspective, having the ability to see what's happening around us and starting it in that environment actually meant that we didn't have as many challenges as many other entrepreneurs who started maybe right before, to be honest with you. So I think every entrepreneur has to be adaptable. You know, funding slowed down a little bit in those early days. So if you were an entrepreneur that was trying to raise money, you were desperate to raise money, which many entrepreneurs are when you run out of cash, you were forced to take deals at a lower valuation. We saw that happening all over the place, in particular if you lost 90% of your revenue. Other people, you know, I think it's better in this kind of environment when you're starting a company to not have to rely on external funding sources and get to a certain level of traction before you go to investors so that you have leverage, right? Because then it's not really going to matter whether there's pressure and valuations for other companies because you're growing. You know, the current environment is creating an opportunity. And so I think, long story short, for many companies that are starting fully virtually, in particular education technology companies that are delivering education virtually, this is actually an opportunity, and they're going to have more opportunities than problems right now because everybody's trying to solve this. They're going to have a better ability to get customers because there's demand, even more demand for that kind of education now than there was before. So, you know, from our perspective, we were lucky enough again to start very, very lean, to not rely on external funding at all. To you know, my co-founder is a university professor, so he designed the curriculum completely, and we taught the first initial classes. So the capital expenditures were very, very low to zero essentially, and then we were able to monetize very quickly too within about a month of launching that venture. So I think there were more opportunities than challenges from my perspective, and we're lucky enough to have that.
So super quick follow-up, super quick, because we're about to hit the lightning round. So I want to make sure I get to everybody else. But you at NYU, so from a university side, you invest in students, educators, and then also technology coming out. What maybe just one piece of advice? So if someone is in that position, looking to come out of university and raise from a fund similar to you, what's one piece of advice you would give them looking at those three areas? So looking at technology that you may want to invest in that's being created in university, entrepreneurs that are coming out as students, and then educators as well.
You know, I'm probably going to give an answer that's different than I like to throw a curveball. So the answer is this: for most people starting companies out of universities, especially, they're typically first-time founders. Even actually graduate students. A lot of people go and take MBAs because they want to start a company. At least that's what I'm seeing at NYU. About 15% of folks getting MBAs actually want to either get into tech jobs, so not banking, not consulting, but actually tech, or they want to start their own companies. So since most of these recent grads or people starting companies in college are first-time entrepreneurs, I don't think you should look into venture capital at all. I don't think you should base yourself building a business on whether you're going to be able to attract funding or not, because it's going to be harder for you. But also, you know, you're a first-time founder, and it's better to work on getting something off the ground first. For most people, it takes many tries to successfully build a business. We have folks here that run accelerator programs and invest at the pre-seed level. You know that for most people at that pre-seed level, they probably tried half a dozen times before they figured out how to make their first dollar or how to, launch their first product. And college students, by the way, have amazing ideas and revolutionary ideas. Many of them are not going to bring them to market because they've never done it before. So I think to reduce risk, don't rely on external funding. Take your idea, work on an idea that you can get to market as fast as possible. You and your team are uniquely able to get to market as fast as possible. And if and when you have the traction and you're going after a big enough opportunity, then go to investors, even such as myself, because yes, I'm investing out of a university, but we have a similar economic model as most investors, which is we have to have the ability to take a lot of bets, and few of them are going to turn into large outcomes. So that's just the reality of venture investing. And as a student starting a company, you have to understand that.
Perfect. All right, guys, we are at the lightning round. We are here at the top of the hour. So I want to come to everyone for closing thoughts and where can everyone find you? And I know there's so much more to talk about this from all viewpoints and also from regions around the world. So I'm sorry we didn't get to everything today, but I think we packed in quite a bit in our hour together so far today. So much more to continue on the conversation, and everyone listening, do reach out to each and every one of us. Again, remember to add context as to where you heard or where you may have met each of the panelists today. And so with that, Telly, I want to come to you. Quick closing thoughts, quick closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online? So 1 minute, and then where can everyone find you online?
Okay, so I think my closing thoughts would be guess both the entrepreneurs and investors. I think investors should look at holistically at the ecosystem and the landscape and see at what point some of these startups and companies sort of are interoperable within each other, because the experience we're seeing now is a lot of people have to log into so many things. So integration, interoperability is a key area you should look at because it makes it sustainable. Where people can find me, similar to Sergey, you can find me on LinkedIn. We're just launching altschools.co. So you can also find me in All Schools. I did the very same thing Sergey did, built out the curricula, worked together, all bootstrapped, and now we're in the period of monetizing everything, got all the partnerships and stuff. So I think for us, for me, I'm Black, I'm female, so I have two strikes against me in terms of raising capital, and it's just the reality that it does take a while, a lot longer when you're female, a lot longer when you're Black to raise money, because, and also when you're coming from different contexts, people have to understand it. So my takeaway is I do endorse the bootstrapping model. You just have to create your MVP, make it minimal, keep trying, don't stop, achieve product market fit, keep going back to the cycle, and there you have it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Vineet, I'm sorry, quick closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you as well?
Sure. Thanks, Kyle. Biggest closing thought, when we talk about EdTech, we are always focusing on students. But let me tell you a real problem that, a lot of us haven't foreseen is, where are you going to find tech-enabled teachers, right? We are all seeing this. You have teachers who maybe till 6 months ago were very happy using books and papers and notebooks and sitting in a physical classroom. And it's very easy to assume that a 10-year-old will pick up Zoom and be up there. But someone who's been teaching for 35 years of their professional life, if you tell them, hey, listen, you got to move everything online overnight, that to me is the biggest takeaway. That is actually a huge opportunity as well. And people are not talking about that enough. They should be. As to where you can find me, I am fairly regular on LinkedIn. You are welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I do put out a regular series of videos only about startups and entrepreneurship. Very happy to have one of you guys come in on the next time I do a video. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Definitely check out his videos. They are great. I have taken another level of education myself as well and tuned in onto them as well. So thank you, Vineet. Adrian, we had a special guest I saw show up in the background there, but unfortunately we're at time. So where can everyone find you online? We don't have enough time to welcome them on the show, unfortunately, but where can everyone find you?
One of my daughters was there. You can find me on LinkedIn, Adrian Niculescu, Adrian Niculescu on LinkedIn, sorry. And adrianniculescu.com is my blog. Closing thought, we have to take very good care of our children, because in the primary school, especially in Romania, where my children are in school, they have to wear masks. And I believe this is pretty bad. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's something we're going to continue to discuss here on VCTV, just where the future of education is going. But Sergey, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me. I'm very also active on LinkedIn, just Sergey Revzin. You can follow me there. On Twitter, @srevzin. And if you want to check out the work that NYU is doing for entrepreneurs, it's entrepreneur.nyu.edu, or just Google NYU startups and you'll find out all about that work and our philosophy there. But thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining as well. Irina, to you, where can everyone find you?
You can Google me anywhere. I think the best way, if you actually have a business connection that you want to make, LinkedIn message me. Just make sure that you let me know whether it's a blockchain integration vertical or is it Lumeria and your scaling company. So those are kind of the two things to mention. And my closing thoughts is things are changing and everything is changing fast. And all the things that we've been hoping that can change with time are changing very fast right now. And so we need the deployment, we need the entrepreneurs, and it's all coming up together. And if you are an entrepreneur and if you've never opened a business, bootstrap to angel is good, right? Like I agree with you guys. However, if you have experience, don't wait. Go and get funding, because you can get done things way faster. And I need things to move faster than they are right now, because we need this solution, guys.
Wonderful. And Louis, close us out. Where can everyone find you online?
Easy. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to fjapartners.com or megahoot.com, see what we're doing technology wise. I want to thank everyone on the panel. This is a great panel. And thank you, Kyle, for making everything happen, Maria, and then so on and so forth. Entrepreneurs, if you're watching this, stay hungry, stay innovative, don't be a copycat, do something new. And just to anchor on to Sergey, okay, build it, then get the money. Build it first. Don't sell yourself short. Don't do that. Build it, make it happen. And EdTech is a great space. I'm looking forward to a lot of things that are going to be happening here. But Kyle, back to you.
Thank you very much. And all, thank you so much for spending the time today and sharing your thoughts and insights on where things are today around education and education technology and where they're going from here. There's a lot more to discuss, as we've said, and we'll be back here on VCTV to talk about this subject a lot, including the underlying technology, some of those that we mentioned today, whether it was artificial intelligence, AR, VR, blockchain, fintech, all of the above, and some others as well we didn't get a chance to get into today. So stay tuned. And audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today, like our panelists. Thank you, Irina, as well. And also a big thank you, Sergey, to Elena, Maria, and to the entire LATOKEN team for making VCTV possible every single day. Good job in it. I love it. All right, I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host. You can find me everywhere on social media at Kyle Ellicott. We'll be back here after a short break for another episode of VCTV. We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.